record this thing to the cloud. Okay, April 21st, implementation working group of the U.S. National Grid Institute. We're underway, and yeah, all I got to do is be smart enough to figure out how to advance things. So 5 minutes on the administrative items. The recording's in fact on. I've got a list here on the roll call. I'll check partway through to make sure that if anybody else has wandered in, I know who you are and all the rest of that good stuff. Really appreciate the fact we've got Tony Specie. Is that how you say it? Did I get it right?
Close. Speechy, but species pretty good.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. He's down in Missouri and has participated in the task force down there. So great interface on U.S. National Grid. Rand, a long time ago, has sponsored many of the efforts in Florida. And Rand, I believe you're running your own operation now, aren't you?
I am doing some consulting, but I'm actually trying to mostly be retired. Working on that.
I can totally relate. BJ Kolstead, who is retired, has decided to do a little bit of something in the afterlife here, and much appreciated. BJ's up in northern Minnesota. Randy Knipple, Dakota County GIS. Brian Much, who is a former Army colonel, artillery officer. I'm surprised he can still hear, but to the degree that he helps run the effort over in Wisconsin on the trails effort. And we've also got Georgiana Strode, down professor at Florida State University. And I'm just looking down the list. Steve, I'm sorry, is it Paul Lakov? Is it Cove? Is that correct? Are you with us?
Paulikov. And yes.
Yeah. I'm sorry, I struggle with it all the time. Please forgive me.
That's fine.
Your background's New York City, as I remember. Is that correct?
I am a retired captain from the New York City Fire Department. I was in charge of the GIS unit for the last 12 years of my career. And currently I am a GIS project manager for a company called Geocom based in Minnesota. And we work on next generation 911 systems.
Thank you, sir. Ron Williams, looked like you checked in from Georgia. Is that correct? Going once, going twice. Here for a while and then disappeared. Okay. Mike Core, Florida State University, joining us for the first time. Much appreciated. And my personal apologies to all of you in that I was very, very tardy in getting the announcement stuff out, but I've been dancing as fast as I can with a lot of personal issues, settling my mom's estate and whatnot. And so for that, you've got my personal apology. Okay, Ron's letting us know he's with us. And is there anybody I missed? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay. Since we're going to actually be talking about something of a actual potential for instituting a actual entity, unlike some of our past meetings, I would ask for a motion to open our meeting. And so all I have to have is so motioned. Randy, you're usually pretty good at that. Can you do
So
that?
moved.
Yep. And can we have somebody out there that'll second it, please?
I'll second it. This is BJ.
Hey, BJ, thank you. Okay. And with that, we're underway. Probably what I hope for the last time, I'm on the hook here to do an outreach, a technical, and a training update. I'm going to ask folks to jump in when we hit things, but here we go. Outreach update, broke it apart into two different things. U.S. National Grid, and I assume everybody can see my screen, so there you go. There they are, the two people that just got the show under oath. BJ Kolstead and Randy Knipple led the effort on putting forward a excellent program of instruction at the Wisconsin Land Information Association. And Shared Geo kind of backed them up with, we did a virtual booth. Some of you are already aware of this. And then I kind of added a piece to it with doing a presentation on the emergency location marker, which uses the US National Grid. Before we move off that, Randy or BJ, is there anything you want to add to the fire on that one? Going once, going twice. Randy, you got your mic's off, so I think you're going to talk to me.
Well, I was thinking, well, it was really nice having it as a virtual meeting. It certainly made it real easy to be a part of their conference. So it was interesting. It was a little bit challenging, I guess, because you don't get to read the audience, which I really rely on. I always also like pointing at my slides and things like that. But having the end result include a recording of it was really good. So I thought it was a good experience.
Okay, good. Thank you, sir. BJ, hearing nothing, we're moving on. Okay, Georgiana, I'm throwing you under the bus right now. You and Mike Core, if you'd like to speak to the issue of what you all have been doing with this SAR Topo project, very impressive. And just if you would try to bring folks up to speed where you're at with this thing.
Okay, I'll get it started. Al, I see Al's not here today, but he got a call last Hurricane Laura last fall, and they wanted a 1 kilometer USNG population map for southern Louisiana. And Al called me and I called Finis, and we got the map. They wanted it ASAP and we got it to them. However, the process broke down because they needed it in a special format, which is SAR Topo, and I was unable to figure out how to do that. So the project just languished. Well, then we were fortunate to add Mike Core to our team. And of course he can figure out most anything. So I just handed the project to him, and he has expanded it to, well, he can tell you all about it. So Mike, why don't you take over?
Appreciate that introduction. No build up or anything. So I started with Free Act a few months ago over at FSU, and Georgiana was gracious enough to let me work on this project. And so basically we took the USNG high resolution population data for the SAR Topo project, and we were able to publish it as what's known as a web map service that can be accessed through most web-based maps like SAR Topo. The SAR Topo maps are useful because they show data like cellular data viewsheds that help aid in search and rescue missions. And now we've been able to put gridded population data along with those other resources that are currently in use. So basically what we did, the first step was converting the world pop raster data to 1 kilometer USNG vector layers for the Southeast United States. And then the map layers were published as a service in Esri's ArcGIS Server Manager as a web map service. The high resolution gridded data can be accessed in SAR Topo, GIS Server, ArcMap, ArcGIS Pro desktop for population-based decision making and for resource allocation in the Southeastern United States.
Very cool. Thank you so much for that effort. When hurricane season arrives, I'm sure folks will come looking for additional help. So it's already pre-positioned. Wonderful development. Thank you. Also, that Florida State University team can't help themselves, and they're on the bill for the National Hurricane Conference. Once again, Georgiana and Mike are going to be front and center on that. And is there anything you want to add on that particular topic?
I'm presenting the same topic that I was going to present last year before it was canceled for COVID. And that is a multivariate glyph visualization to show 4 pieces of CDC social vulnerability data at the same time on one map. And that was created by taking a 1 kilometer USNG and superimposing the 100 meter. And then you have a 10 by 10 grid system that you can make designs to represent the data. So that is what I'm going to be showing.
Okay, thank you. Appreciate that. Next, we are going to jump into a discussion real quick on an overview of where some of the Elm projects are. Cobb County is in their phase 4. That's Atlanta Metro, another 850 signs. And so that project, I think now is pushing close to 2,500 markers, and they've had some pretty good feedback about how that's going along. We've got an important development largely being driven out of BJ and Randy's presentations to gain interest in Wisconsin on U.S. National Grid. The counties of Bayfield and Sawyer are operating basically as a team to mark their trails. And what's exceptionally important in what they're doing is this area hosts the largest cross-country ski event in North America. It's called the American Birkebeiner, and part of their trail system in those counties are used, or I should say it is focused in those counties, and the Birkebeiner Trail will be part of the system that they'll be marking. And so there's actually folks that travel from all over the world to participate in this event because it is part of a international series, sort of like downhill ski competition. So there will be an opportunity for others to see our version of the military grid reference system being put to use for civilian applications. So we're really jazzed about that development. Lake County and Cook County are working collaboratively also on trail work that's being done there. And BJ, if I could, I'll just call on you to give folks a real quick update on the work that you'll be doing this summer. Going
Yeah.
once? Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Sorry. I was trying to show my video. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah, we have the Lake County is about 3,000 square miles of mostly public woods and waterways. And the county has had 2 things recently happen. One is that they're pushing really hard to promote mountain biking, and they have a new mountain bike trail that's going on from one state park to another. They're putting ELMs on there. And then they also had another group that wanted to install a snowshoe trail. So the county made the requirement that the town could install that snowshoe trail on county land if they put ELMs on it. So we have 2 new projects that are going to be incorporated into the ELM program this summer. And if I could go back to Bayfield for just a moment, I am scheduled to train their dispatchers on May 25th. So we got that scheduled.
Okay. Very cool. Thank you, BJ. From down south there in Georgia, here's an email that was forwarded to me by Jesse Glasgow, who is leading the effort to put in ELMs in that county, and you can read it for yourself. Basically, the fire captain at Marietta Fire Department very pleased with what he's seen in terms of the ability for his crews to be able to respond. So as he says, great job to you all. I want to pass along to all of you that have been involved in U.S. National Grid enablement and ELM program. Here's an example of the outcome, a good outcome from that effort. And kind of my way of thinking, it makes all the effort worthwhile. So good deal. And then Randy, I know that you've engaged with the Minnesota off-road cyclists. Is there anything you want to add about that one?
No, just waiting to hear back from them. I was approached about getting emergency location markers on the trails that are on Buck Hill, which is in our southern metro area. It's a ski hill during the winter, and they have mountain bike trails in the summer. So we'll see. They're familiar with the mountain bike trails that we have in the county park. So they're really looking at having the same kind of thing done here. And so I just offered to engage with them and help them establish the locations. I think the way I left it with them is they were going to mark locations on the ground where they thought they wanted a sign, and then I would go out and assist them with establishing the GPS coordinates and everything else.
Okay, that's
But
great.
I also warned them that it's important that we do training for first responders as well. So, I'll help with that too.
Okay, thank you so much, Randy. Okay, that takes us down to the technical update. Just 2 items. I'm going to end up throwing Randy under the bus here again shortly. Shared Geo has been working hard on over at the USNG Center. This is an old enablement that was done. It's probably pushing 10 years ago now, where there are USNG map books. Pretty much the entire southeast of the United States, the Gulf and the Atlantic coast is now covered. Iowa, Missouri, Wisconsin, Minnesota, on and on have got some level of enablement either for a direct map product or a map book and or both. Missouri has got a pretty comprehensive effort that they did. Now, I think that's probably pushing 8 or 9 years ago. So what we're trying to do here is create a way. We will build we're in the process of building an updated snapshot, and then and it is also an enablement to download those particular items. But the other thing we're up to with this effort is for a way through enablement, technical enablement for individuals around the country to ongoingly update links to their particular products or upload as needed. So Randy's involved in working on that project, and some of the folks at Shared Geo, that team is working on trying to get us there. So that's kind of the bottom line on we're making good progress on it. And I think we'll probably have something to show you next time we get together. So that's what that beast is all about. Randy took it upon himself following the WLIA to run 10K maps for the entire state of Wisconsin. And those are now available. So Minnesota, Iowa, and Wisconsin are now available directly off of the USNG Center. And in short order, you'll also be able to see Georgia, as I understand it. So Randy smirks, which tells me not so fast. So the floor is yours, Randy. Why don't you talk to folks about what we did for hosting and the rest of it?
Yeah. I mean, the application was really for Wisconsin was really just derived from what I did for Minnesota. And it was done as a follow-up to the WLIA workshop that we did. After giving a presentation about how to create the maps, there were questions that I was fielding questions about downloading U.S. National Grid data, preparing the data and all that. And I thought, by the time I do this, I can just make the maps. And it started to lead then to, well, what can I do to extend that for Georgia as well? And I think, where I'm heading is really creating the data for 10K maps nationally, and really perhaps doing it state by state or something like that. But it only has to be done one time. The biggest issue is creating the appropriate polygons to feed the map making process along the grid zone junctions. That's always been kind of a bugger, but the ArcGIS Pro does a really good job of dealing with it cartographically. It's just to automate it, you really have to build the data. But then another piece of that is also, I can create the app that hosts or that represents or gives you access to the maps. I just provided the link in the chat. Very easily, I'm just doing that with my Dakota County ArcGIS online account. Doesn't cost anything. There's really no overhead. But then we have to have a place to put the maps, and I had been putting them on the Dakota County website. And Steve and I started brainstorming, and he thought he had some space that he could use. I believe it's out in, where is it? Google or what?
It's HostGator.
HostGator. Oh, that's right. That's right.
Yep.
And so we just did a little brainstorming, went back and forth, and while there are a lot of maps, and technically they're rather large, Steve had gigabytes available in HostGator, so we just figured out a way to FTP, that he could set up FTP so I could access it. I could upload all the maps. We generate the URLs that go directly to the maps, and that just plugs into the data. So it's really pretty straightforward. Just needed a place to put the maps that's web accessible. The URLs to the maps are all basically attributes on the polygon layer that represents the map. So when you click on a polygon, it gives you the URL, and that's just an attribute. So we just have to be able to adjust that to point to wherever the maps are. But I think we've got something now, at least for the time being, that we can use. And I think we should probably stick the Minnesota maps out there, get them off the Dakota County website, and then once I have the Georgia maps done, the only snag I ran into was trying to automate the whole thing for Georgia. I just need to get back to it and finish up and make the maps, call it done, and then work on the next phase, which is really setting it up so that it'll work anywhere. And then we'll be publishing that data out on USNG Center. The stuff that's out there now just requires a bunch of prep work, which, at least at the 10K level, is not unmanageable to just do. So it's just available for anybody to use. Once it gets down to the 1K level, then you're at a whole different level because of the sheer volume of polygon squares that are required. So I'd be happy to answer any questions about that, but that's the gist of it. So I'm really just leveraging, previous experience for the next thing. It kind of feeds some new ideas, and I think we've got some ideas now to take it to the next level. And I just need to get back to that after I finish up some other responsibilities here locally.
Thank you, Randy. Great effort, and shows a way for what we can do in terms of if you got a product out there, you need a place to host it. It's not a problem anymore. So we've got a way to move forward with that. So good deal. The training update, we're right on scale, a little bit on back schedule here. I'm trying to prime the pump here to get things going along with a standardized training plan that ultimately ends up with some sort of certificate issued out of hopefully what will be an institute. And so I've forwarded over to Al, BJ, and Randy a document to take the look at for them to bat around for a bit. I think they're the ones that have been most engaged, short of, I see Talbot Brooks is joining us today, in being out there and making the rubber meet the road with putting the instruction out there to help people move along. So I've proposed as a way to try to reduce the redundancy in a lot of the presentations with overlap and whatnot, a kind of a streamlined idea about how to cover the topic, and then how to add in some things that we haven't really hit very effectively in the past. Things like use of CAD, mobile data terminals, ride-along products, so on and so forth. And so one of the premises that's been brought forward is that we need to do a better job of splitting apart the GIS community so that the topic delivery to them focuses on the creation of the product, and then maybe more importantly is how to engage with the emergency management function for where they work, so that they can effectively support the first responders and then flip it around to try to do a better job of showing to the response community how to use all these various products that are out there. I think that was apparent to me from the time we did the effort down in La Crosse, seeing the degree of shortfall that there was in delivery on that topic, and people were very, very thirsty for it. So anyway, Talbot and Al over the years have developed a basic land navigation program, and that could be an add-on piece to what I'm showing here is an initial 3-hour delivery of by community focus, and the basic land navigation that works for both sides of the equation. And then if there's a need for any special presentations, the two that of course I would point to out of self-interest would be the ELM presentation that I've got packaged up and is already online. And then to the degree that we've been working hard to try to figure out a way forward for bringing interns into the effort so that they go forward with the rest of their career knowing about US National Grid and things of that nature. And so we got to figure out a way to get step by step on the delivery of something like that. So anyway, I've kicked it over to, in theory, that the training group to see what they want to say about it and how they're thinking about maybe moving forward with it. Second.
I got a question on that, Steve.
Yep, go ahead. Sorry.
And maybe to Randy. I think I understand, Randy. Are you still the chair of that training group? And if so, could we kind of plan a time to visit about it?
Certainly. I should probably relinquish that chair, BJ. If you're willing. Please take charge.
Well, that wasn't what I was suggesting or asking.
Well, obviously, I'm not doing a very good job at it. And you want to take some initiative, please just schedule something.
Okay, I'll get in touch with you by email. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, that's about as good a segue as we can get to this whole discussion about what we want to do with ourselves going forward. So hold that thought, BJ. You got it? All right.
I got it.
All right. So the other thing, anybody that's tried to set up a YouTube channel in this day and age, you probably know it's not easy. So anyway, we do now functionally have a YouTube channel. This meeting will be posted there, and any specific training we do going forward will come to live there. But once again, back to the training, folks, in terms of what do we host there? How do we host it? What do we want to format out for online training? So on and so forth. So that's really kind of the vision as it sits right now from the admin side, is what to do the YouTube channel. But interestingly, Talbot reached out to me and offered all of his past training efforts, and it kind of drove home the point in looking at this most recent YouTube, I should say, well, I don't know if it's YouTube, but is recorded recent recorded presentation. It had a very academic spin to it. And so it really prompted the thought that I would think of our playlists. We would want to segregate out the academic work like we see with Florida State University, or some of the work that I believe it's Dr. Clark's done at Santa Barbara University, Talbot's work that's focused at the academic community, and then another channel for the first responder, another channel for the GIS community. So give some thought to that as we move forward. And you can find it at that long URL along the bottom of the screen. Doesn't Google very well yet. And that that's on there that you see in the screen, that'll be replaced by whatever we start thinking about with a logo. So that's the update on the YouTube channel. Anybody got any further thoughts on that one? Going once, going twice. Okay. before we jump into this National Grid Institute discussion, anything
Can you
else?
hear me now?
Got you loud and clear. Who is it?
There, sorry, I was muted in like 3 places. Talbot,
Go ahead, Talbot.
be grateful I was muted in 3 places. I got it. I'm late to the party, but just on the YouTube stuff, if folks, as they contribute content, can edit or break it into 10-minute chunks, it seems to drive up the usability of the of videos and stuff like that. And then, do you have, Steve? One of the things I think that's important with the YouTube is, there's handouts and stuff like that. You've got a link in the video description so that people can go. Right.
Yep. Yeah, got it. It's a good idea. Great idea.
So like, click here to get the training map before you watch the video.
Yep.
Needs to be.
Can you actually enable that in YouTube? Can you put that in the
Yeah.
comments?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Absolutely, you can.
Okay. Yeah. So, what I'd suggested when I ran this, trying to get the spark plug going on developing the lesson plan structure is, correct me if I'm wrong, Talbot, but the U.S. Fire Administration, their approach to training is no more than 20 minutes, right?
That's correct. Actually, 5 minutes for their coffee break. Yeah, it's 5 or 10 minutes for their coffee break.
Okay.
Training. But they're not training on it at all anymore. The classes that I had been teaching this as a part of are essentially phased out. And there's some big, just big shifts, and they contracted a couple other folks that I it's the lowest bidder deal. So I have no idea even what's in some of the GIS content up there right now.
Okay. All right. So, point well taken. Training materials off of the YouTube channel, and the issue of trying to break presentations down into digestible modules online. Yep. Got it. Thank you. Okay. Anything else before we wander into this National Grid Institute discussion? Going once, going twice, gone. Okay. What I'm going to suggest to you is it'd be ironic if we as a group weren't thinking about the issue of resilience. And as you probably can see through the camera, I'm no spring chicken. And a lot of the other folks that are involved in this aren't spring chickens either. And so there needs to be some sort of thinking about how we move forward from just occasionally, every 3 months or so, getting together to chat about what we've been working on or whatever, under the thought that, I walk out the door or whatever, I know no person goes without being able to be replaced. I get that whole thing from 31 years in the service, but I'm going to suggest a way forward for the group to think about how to build some capability in something that does have some resilience to it. And so kind of the whole idea had always been about, if you will, creating a U.S. National Grid Institute. And I've just thrown my thought up there about, what would the mission of this thing be? Well, the suggestion I'm offering here is to promote awareness and use of the U.S. National Grid as the emergency response language of location by America's responders and public. So that's one way to think about it. The second kind of important thing is is what kind of structure and why would you want to change how we're doing things? Well, for those that have been kind of involved in this from the beginning, you know that this really started through the efforts of Al Studd down in Florida in trying to annually get together across the nation folks that were interested in U.S. National Grid. It was done with the Fire East effort there out of Jacksonville, Florida. And the problem always that he ran into was the technical enablement from the convention center was a nightmare to start out with. And second of all, in working with Al, the problem we just really didn't have any sense of who was out there and what they were doing. And this effort has kind of filled in those empty spots in terms of gaining an understanding of who's out there. But continuing to operate with no formal structure and just keep doing what we're doing leaves us stuck in kind of a place that, again, it's up to the group to figure out, well, maybe that's good enough. But the complaint I've always heard from folks is that we've got no credibility. We don't exist as anything. And so Shared Geo has been doing the support piece to try to bring this group together. But, you know, short of Shared Geo writing checks, there's no funding. And the issue that I talked about earlier was, you know, leadership, timeout, burnout, whatever you call, you know, some of you know Tom Terry, and, you know, he was all in for a really long time on this whole effort. And people just get to the point where they're burned out. And I'm just suggesting here that if we don't start thinking about a succession plan, we don't start thinking about a way to build some meat to the organization or this effort, you run the risk of leadership walking out the door and the effort collapsing in on itself. Well, maybe you want to use an informal leadership team. Just the subgroup chairs getting together and chatting about what way we want to go forward. But once again, you got no level of credibility, you got no funding, and you're still running that leadership timeout issue. Well, anybody that's stood up an organization or run a nonprofit or any of that stuff knows that it's actually a pretty simple affair to create something. The requirement is that you have a chair, you have a secretary, and you have a treasurer. And beyond those three positions, you don't really need anything else to bring an operating entity into existence. Well, what that does for you is it gives you a level of credibility. Funding now becomes a possibility. But the downside is by coming into existence, you trigger the requirement to do a handful of state reports. They're typically not a big deal. And there's a need to do a tax filing because you've effectively created, in the eyes of the IRS, another body. And it's $990 is the filing for a nonprofit, you know, corporate standard filing tax if you're operating as a corporate. Well, what does that trigger? Not really much, not at the level of effort that is involved here. And then there's the fourth kind of way to move forward. And actually, every nonprofit first gets created using that corporate structure thing, that you have to have a chair, you have to have a secretary, and you have to have a treasurer. And so the nonprofit world kind of is the same way. It gives you credibility. It gives you funding possibilities, and it gives you a much simpler route forward on what you need to do for state filings and tax filings, because they know mom and pop, you know, baseball support organization doesn't have any capacity to do anything fancy either. So it kind of becomes a balance between, do you want to take on some additional administrative responsibilities? Does that the gain through credibility, the gain through the possibility of getting outside funding, is that worthwhile the effort? Now, typically what happens when you go in for grant funding and other kinds of approaches is it's that bottom line question there. How long have you existed? So the reason I mention that is because it, in my mind, tilts the playing field in the direction of you want to do something sooner rather than later. So what would it functionally look like? The oversight and governance function lives with a board of directors, as I've already mentioned, the chair, secretary, and treasurer. And that piece basically drives, how those people get elected, how how long they serve, all of that good kind of stuff. And ironically, in a way, they tend to be more of a figurehead type entity in running an organization. Because down on the left side of the screen there, in that exist box, comes the reality that any organization, just like what we're doing here today, you have to have an admin function to try to make, stuff work. You have to have a way to communicate with people, and you have to have some level of IT, just as your core operation of existence. And then over in the right-hand box there at the bottom, that enables mission execution. Well, first you have to decide what your mission is. So once you got that figured out, what was mentioned earlier when we were, batting this around was to create an outreach effort, a technical effort, and a training effort. So what that implies really is that the mission execution would only get done if you got somebody willing to chair each of those three functions and to put together their team and make things work from there. By and large, I think also it's probably pretty obvious that I've been working to put in place the stuff to allow an organization to exist. Again, it doesn't mean that an organization has to exist, but that effort has been done, and those pieces are by and large positioned and are available to operate. And I got no problem with continuing to operate them for a certain level of time into the future. But at some point, I will time out, as I've indicated. There's an expiration date on everybody, and I want to have a little bit of retirement before that happens. So anyway, that's the functional, part there, is figuring out who's your chair, who's your secretary, and no kidding, this organization has already got a bank account, and who's going to get charged, to make sure they understand where the pennies are going in and out of that bank account. Okay, with that comes down the idea of what are the expectations, to exist. Well, the admin function, you're talking about archives, you're talking about draft communications for the board to release. Hey, we've often heard this thing thrown around like somebody needs to write a letter to, XYZ Corporation to tell them that they need US National Grid. Well, now if you've got, if you will, a USNG Institute, and you've got an admin function, and again, I've already stuck up my hand, said I'm willing to do that, draft an item for release by the board, off it goes, and it's the board of directors, USNG Institute, which has a little bit more smack in it than one lone fireman or one lone policeman writing a note saying, hey, this is a problem, you need to fix it. And at admin standards, letterhead, logo, etc. Communications, nothing more than sending out the meeting announcements. And at some point, maybe getting a little newsletter or something going with USNGI Institute updates. And IT, the email piece is already done. The hosting thing is already positioned. And then there's the issue of bringing up a US National Grid Institute website. So that's kind of what I would think the expectations would be for an entity to exist. Not over the top, not overly cumbersome, but you need to do some basic things to make things work. So then it comes down to mission execution. you got the function of outreach. Well, we don't do a very good job of communicating right now about events that are taking place, and maybe it's an opportunity to get the word out about US National Grid. We've got a message board, moderately maintained. There is really no social media piece other than what Al had done in the past. And big kudos to Bruce out at NOAA for his effort in getting us the Wikipedia page to the point where I think it's one of the better ones on literally on the internet. We've often talked about the issue that the most effective way to move the ball forward is to do some sort of inventory, survey of how well states are doing on bringing US National Grid products and process along. So within the outreach function, I would think that would live. And then the US National Grid Center, what sort of changes need to be done? Does it need to be reformatted? What stuff needs to be added, dropped? So there needs to be someone monitoring that. Mission execution, coordinate on the technical side, answers to whatever US National Grid community needs have been identified. The SAR topo document is an absolutely perfect example of that, in that we had something come forward from the field, and as a group, we were able to respond to that. Development of document of US National Grid techniques and products. Again, I'd point to what Randy had done with his effort with developing that 10-kilometer grid square product for the state of Wisconsin, where we're falling short there. And again, no stone by any chance being thrown Randy's way. He's done absolutely a yeoman's amount of work to make some amazing stuff happen. But we need to document. So maybe over on that technical team, there's some other folks that can come forward and say, hey, I'm good at documentation. If you're good at figuring out how to do stuff, I'll document it for you. And then training. Long ago, Tom Terry thought, and I see this repeatedly in the questions that come floating into Shared Geo. We continuously get a stream of questions about, what about this with US National Grid? Can you help us understand how this works with US National Grid? Whatever it might be. And so Tom Terry's original idea was basically to host a message board, nothing more fancy than that, identify a couple of experts to be able to come through and, to some degree, monitor the board and answer the questions to help people move forward in what they're doing. And then what you do out of that process is you start building a repository of answers to questions that other people can come along, read and go, oh yeah, Guy, I get it. Yep, no sweat. Develop a standard for training. We've already talked about that for in-person and online. Deliver the training, and then finally document completion of training with a certificate program. Hey, you guys over in admin, design us a certificate. We want a certificate that says I've completed 3 hours of USNG training at the following event. Okay, so I've been blabbing. Now the floor is open, and there are kind of 5 different questions that I put up there, to the degree that, do you all as a group think that there's a need to move to a more formal structure? And if so, what is that structure? Here's the bugger of them all. Who's willing to serve, and in what capacity are you willing to serve? Do we vote now on making this? Do we do a poll? Do we create a work group to come back with some recommendations? Government's document, what is that going to look like? What's the length of term? Blah, blah, blah. There's a million things there. Usually can get that done in about 5 pages tops. And then meeting conduct going forward. You guys want to sit here and listen to me blab all the time? Or should it be the committee chairs reporting out as to what work they've been getting done over the past 4 months or 3 months? Okay.
So Steve, is nonprofit status and a incorporation as an organization in Minnesota or whatever state already occurred?
It has not.
So we'd have to create a set of bylaws and apply for recognition with Minnesota or whatever state
Yeah.
we're going to do this in first, right?
Yeah. So Talbot, as you probably well know, I can do this stuff standing on my head. The actual incorporation piece in the state of Minnesota uses a series of templates that basically you fill in the blank, like on what day, who's your secretary, who's your treasurer, blah, blah, blah. I think it's only 1 page long to incorporate in the state of Minnesota.
Well, okay, so let me put it another way, more to the point. So we're going to do it in Minnesota.
Well, we do wherever
And
you want.
I'm fine. I'm totally fine with that.
The floor is open. Beyond Talbot. Any other thoughts out there? Help me out here.
This is BJ. I'm
Ron.
in favor of a nonprofit. I think those are, I agree with you that they're fairly easy to set up. And they are well known for doing good works. I think people look at nonprofits far different than they would look at a corporate kind of situation. And I'd be happy to serve in whatever way I can. I feel extremely limited because I'm not a GIS professional or a techie person. I'm a ground pounder, but I can be a secretary and or help with training or, making the certificates and trying to keep track of things and help keep things organized.
Thank you.
I'm not sure if you want me taking notes, so if I don't understand what you're talking about.
No, you're doing great, BJ. The important part is to be motivated. Any other thoughts on structure?
I have one just point of information. Serving on a couple of other boards now, this is really challenging, and just taking on the weight of annual tax and filing obligations. Those are all fixed amount of time and they occupy it. So is there any chance that this organization would be best under the wing of a larger one? In other words, the question is, does it serve at all to consider being adopted and then becoming, like colleges got this, and then they have the adjacent institute of, right?
Yes.
But
Yes.
But you don't have to worry about the filings or any of that. You just have to comply with practice within that group. They might have free Zoom accounts. These things get expensive. In one organization, it was 500 people, and really, this is a challenge. I don't think we've really got the scale we could use at this stage in the universe, if that makes any sense.
Mary Susan, that makes absolutely perfect sense. And what you're talking about is a arrangement. There's actually 5 levels, but what you end up doing is existing on the tax return of your parent organization. You can't dodge once you come into existence unless you have absolutely no activity of not reporting your operations, if you understand what I'm saying.
Well, you as soon as you go on the radar by incorporating either as a nonprofit or as a we're going to make our living on t-shirts kind of great group, you're into that annual report anyway.
Yeah.
And the head count and expertise and making sure you have the head count and expertise to pull that off every year. I mean, I have to say in both organizations, we have 2 critical people. BJ, it's like your skills turn out to be the ones that keep it all going because it's the paperwork you live on, you know? So at any rate, that was my one thought. I don't know what organization it might be, but it's like, find one that cares if we exist, right? But at any rate, that was one thought to consider, and maybe some institution, maybe FSU needs a small nonprofit adjacent institute.
Well, effectively,
Yeah,
but effectively, right now you're under the wing of Shared Geo.
right.
And Shared Geo, both with the USNG Center and trying to do this effort. What my only concern is that I think it will have more smack to it if it exists as an organization, because I just think, oh well, you're just a group. Interjecting too much, in my opinion here. The bottom line is I've already walked through. I think if you're just a collection of people without any formal organization, I think that's problematic in what we need to do going forward, is what I would vision. But maybe the answer is we're just happy with where we are. And if that's the answer, so be it.
Oh, I'm just, thank you for letting me throw my 2 cents in. Will recuse myself, not having a long enough experience with this group to hold a vote.
Oh no, don't do that, Mary Susan. You're a full-fledged member. You don't realize it, but you are.
Girl gadfly here, Listen, if I can get the Empire State Trail to use Elm, then I'll have earned my chops. Until then, I'm all hat, no cattle. So
Okay.
let me.
Okay.
But thank you very much, and I get it. It's if you have an idea of who your funders might be, like if you were going for NSF dollars, right? Because of the kinds of projects based on grids and population square data, there was a kind of a nice set of you two can use the squares coming out of orthos and satellite imagery in pop grids. So that was, but they don't use USNG, right? The grid they're using is based off the satellite grids. So that presented an interesting challenge. So let me just say that thank you. And I continue to find this group quite amazing with what you pull off with so little resources. So I'm all behind anything that helps make that grow.
Very cool. Thank you, Mary Susan. Okay. So right now we're vacillating on structure. So let's move on to the next one. Who is willing to serve out there and in what capacity? So BJ already stuck up her hand and said, however I can be used, I'm willing to do that. Mike, have I stopped people from?
No. Can you hear me?
Yeah, got you loud and clear.
Great, perfect. Yeah, I'm willing to help. I'm willing to help in whatever capacity you would need somebody, but specifically, I know a lot about YouTube and marketing online and making that stuff searchable and putting the correct information where it would need to be. I was running an online business that I kind of closed down to start at FSU. So I know a lot about advertising on Facebook and Google and kind of getting a message out there and getting people to respond to it. Kind of what I did. We ended up shipping almost 800 packages from August to April. So yeah. Also, I know a ton about GIS as well as I could help create content and put things together and do some communication and outreach or something like that. Or any other capacity that you might need some help in. There's a lot that I could do. But I'm more than willing to help, yeah.
Thank you very much, Mike. I really appreciate that. Got you scribbled down. Thank you.
Perfect.
This is Georgiana. And I just want to say, I know that we've done a lot of documents with the asset naming and the SARTOPO and various things, but I want to point out that our group at FSU, we are so tiny and nobody's ever heard of us. And we derive a benefit from working with this group because and I've always told my professors the USNG is the most important topic that nobody writes about academically. So I'm willing to volunteer, and I don't know if I'm able to do this, but I'll volunteer Brittany, our graphic designer, if for anything that's needed as well. And we do GIS, and our supervisor, Mike and I's supervisor, is perfectly fine working with this because he is not connected with, but he's associated with the Florida Division of Emergency Management, and he wants to support their undertakings. And this is one way that we can do it. I know we do cartography and it's a roundabout way, but long and short of it is FSU is willing to participate.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I appreciate that. So it looks like the instigator of all this trouble, Al, is on the line finally. Are you here, Al? Going once.
Hey, yes, I made it. One, I forgot the meeting. Two, you're using prohibited software. So I'm on my cell phone. So your Zoom, I can never use my computer, I guess, at work for your Zooms. So, but I got it working. I can see you, and I'm working on it. And I need, it's like size 1.5 font, so I can't read anything, but that's okay.
Well, that's interesting that Zoom has been banned by NASA. So, ouch.
Yep, it is prohibited.
Okay.
Well, because it's made by the Chinese.
Yeah, I have concerns there myself, actually. Okay, so the floor is still open on who's willing to serve and in what capacity.
Steve, I'm willing to do whatever I can. I've got some specific technical things that I want to be working on right now that I think is, the biggest impact that I can have on this effort for the near future. I really want to be able to focus on that and get, see that through. Once that's done, then, I'd certainly be able to focus on something else. But right now, I really don't want to take away from that effort. Really like what I described. But the thing that I've always wondered about is, is there any way that we can get some kind of formal endorsement from NGA, USGS, FEMA, something like that? But are you thinking that that's best pursued after formalizing?
That's what my thought would be.
Okay.
Talbot probably has a better insight on that issue than I do. But I think if we were to draft a request for funding, I think you have to exist before that becomes reality. And
well, even beyond funding, though, just to get some kind of sponsor endorsement.
Yeah. And
So
go ahead, Talbot.
yeah, so that's never going to happen.
That's a cheer.
No,
Any more good news, Talbot?
Yeah, but it's not because of us. It's those organizations, right? The .govs will not issue, especially NGA. Oh my God, any type of proclamation or recommendation that we could, testimonial even, that we could put up on a website or in a YouTube video or anything like that. They're just not allowed to do that, in my experience.
Even for
however,
their standard, it's their standard.
Yeah, but they, what we could, the best we could hope for is, and what they would perhaps prefer is like an article in GIS Cafe about, collaboration to help support their standard, and you could get a comment from them that way in a news article. And of course, it always, anything to do with like NGA or FEMA always has to go through their legal department and all that crap for getting statements. So I think that's maybe the best we could hope for in that regard, and it wouldn't be a quick thing. But Glenn Letham is a friend, and we could ask him to do that. And if we got somebody over on the FEMA side to say, yeah, this is a great organization supporting the implementation of our standard, or, there's a good partnership here, or whatever wording they need to do, that would be the way to go.
Okay. Yeah, thank you, Talbot. If anybody has been mauled more than Talbot in trying to deal with the federal interagency and U.S. National Grid, I don't know who it would be.
Well, maybe just to follow up on my thought, so it's really, formalizing first and then pursuing some kinds of endorsements or sponsorships, however we want to look at it, which could come from the private sector as well. So,
Yeah, and
or other fraternal organizations like the Minnesota Off-Road Cyclists and things like that.
Yeah.
So you have a place to start to put some of those things, which gives us a little more credibility, I guess, is what I'm going.
Yeah, well, really what you're talking about is demonstrating the demand signal, right? And that's what we need to do to get those types of statements.
Okay. All right. Let's move on to the third question. We're running up on time, and I want to be respectful of everyone's time. I'm sensing from how this has gone so far that perhaps what we want to do is to create a work group to come back to the larger group next time, and if you will, lay out a more concrete proposal and move forward in that way. Does that make sense on the floor?
Yep,
And the yep would be from,
that would be from BJ.
okay. Anybody else want to chime in?
Randy says,
I have my thumb up.
yep,
Okay.
Randy said yes.
All right, I guess terrible luck here on running a Zoom meeting. So, and so that would drive also government's document, length of term, working through all of that stuff. And so based on what I heard today, it sounds to me like Mike, Georgiana, Randy, BJ, myself, is there anyone else that would like to join us for that conversation on formalizing what we're doing here?
Hey, Steve, this is Ron.
Ron,
Can you
go
hear me?
ahead.
Hey, Steve, I just wanted to let you know that I'm willing to help in any way I can. I feel like I've been part of this group for a long time and hadn't really contributed much to it. I have limited skills in GIS, but I have been a firefighter in the fire service for 30 years, and I've got quite a few lost person incidents under my belt. So I understand the need that public safety has for USNG, and I also, would like to see it progress. And I keep trudging forward on a local level. So anything I can do to help, I'm willing.
Well, Ron, your perspective is critical for us, though.
Exactly.
So we appreciate your involvement.
Thank you. Yeah, anything I can do, like I said, my skills in GIS are very limited. I understand the concept, but anything I can do, I'd be willing to do that.
Thank you, Ron. Really appreciate that. And so within more or less the grouping of folks that are here that have stuck up their hands, we'll try to keep it kind of on a limited size. Ron, I'll add you to that event if that's okay with you.
Yeah, that'd be great. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you. Anyone else?
Yeah, this is Al. I was going to be in on that too. So I missed most of the meeting, but I'll just chime into the next one and see what you guys got to say. Go ahead.
Okay, yep. So we'll organize a off the grid meeting, if you will, try to define better the issues of structure, leadership of the various subgroups, and then make a decision on how we proceed from there. Bring it back to the larger group and make sure there isn't any heartburn. But I have a feeling that this smaller work group will set the charter for what we're going to do here. So, all right. So the floor is open here. Is there anything else anyone else would like to add?
Steve, this is BJ. I just had a question just from listening to the past discussion.
Yep.
I'm getting the sense that I've heard about talking about nonprofits. I haven't heard anyone really push for any of the other structures that you mentioned. Is that the impression that you have as well, that we're leaning toward a nonprofit, or don't we know yet?
I would suggest to the group, given the experience at Shared Geo and the doors that get opened by virtue of being a nonprofit rather than just a collection of interested individuals and or the formal corporate structure, units of government are far more willing to work with you. And so this may dovetail nicely with what Mary Susan was talking about, in that we can take a look at, it's been a while since I've reviewed how you tuck one nonprofit under another, but we may be able to completely eliminate the double document burden by effectively tucking this organization formally tucking the organization under the wing of Shared Geo. I mean, it's just a loose deal, and I'll speak bluntly to the group that what I don't want to see is if, I walk out the door at Shared Geo or whatever, that you guys are just left swinging in the wind. That's why I'm trying to make sure that things are positioned in a way that you do have an opportunity for resilience. So it's a long answer to your question, BJ, but I think that makes the most amount of sense. But again, we'll get together as a smaller group, bang this thing around for a while and figure out what we want to do.
Sounds good, thanks. I had another quick question for Stephen Polakov, Stephen, we haven't met, but you said that you were a New York City retired fire department folk and now working with Geocom. And my understanding is that Geocom does CAD systems or does programming for CAD systems. Could I get in touch with you about my basic question, since I'm working on training dispatchers on how to use USNG, is that many CAD systems do not incorporate USNG as a default or any other option. So I'm trying to find out what CAD systems are available that might do that. Is that something you could help me with?
Yeah, sure.
Okay.
Outstanding. That's been the $1 million question for what? 11, 12 years?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. 2009, I think I wrote the first article that said, put USNG in CAD, and here we are. So since 2009, very, very few have it.
So Stephen, I assume that your email is on this invitation. I can look it up and shoot you an email.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thanks a lot.
And so the floor is open. Actually, there's one last thing. I want to pass along that, as you probably well know, when we first were batting this USNG Institute around, we were looking at what to do for a logo, and we Shared Geo just whipped some stuff up. It wasn't very, if you will, I don't know, didn't quite have the zing to it should. But anyway, folks down at Florida State University have been hard at work on trying to do up a logo. And I floated by what we had worked together with as a group. Something to look like this. And I got pummeled on, yeah, but it doesn't look like the US National Grid. So my gal up here tried to actually do a grid presentation. And so anyway, those concepts are out there floating around. And to the degree anybody's got any input back on what they'd like to see done, love to hear about it. And then last but not least, I think I'm probably ahead of my skis on this one, but for organizing smaller groups, you need to work on USNG stuff. Zoom's out there, ask for it. So I'll go back and put those up. Floor's still open for another 5 minutes or so. Anything else folks want to talk about?
Hey,
So
Steve, this is Ron.
where are these candidate logos for reaction?
Yeah. What do you think?
Where are they? Or how do you want, what,
You're looking at them.
No, you're
Okay.
showing the wrong slide, Steve. Show the next one with your National Grid Incorporated.
Well,
into-
they should have a reference number or something so we could talk about them, but I guess there's only 6 of them.
That one, yeah, okay. Because that's the one you put the the actual grid on.
Yeah. Yep.
Much better.
Do you want the actual grid, or do you want it to use a hypothetical grid?
Oh, wasn't there an intent to use the blue because of the ELMs and the vetted color and all that? There was some, what if you melded again, there's no reference on the first page, the upper right one, with the second page upper right, and put that graphic in there, flip it around, then you'd have all blue with the real grid. So you don't really have. You didn't put the real grid on the first page versions, is what I'm getting at.
Well, exactly. So poor Brittany Dunn at Florida State University, Georgiana, I don't know how many times has she redrawn everything? I don't know. Probably 15 times.
He doesn't mind.
Yeah. So anyway, the one thing that I got thinking about with color is, to the degree that I got feeling we should maybe have some red to represent the fire community, because one of the things that always goes with a logo is the issue of, what do the components represent? And so, the originally the guidance, as Al's talking about, the one that's in the upper right, we wanted to keep it straight blue and white, but after some further considerations, maybe we want to look for something with a little bit more grab to it. And that's where we ended up with, I just told my artist, just throw some different color schemes together and see what they look like. So am I hearing that you want the actual, the grid displayed in the center? Is that the consensus?
Yes, this is BJ.
Yes, for me.
Okay.
which grid? The hypothetical one or the grid
The
zones?
National Grid.
Grid zones. Yep.
Grid zones.
Is that what your vote is too, Randy?
I can see it either way.
Yeah, I know.
The other one is definitely not right, but it's more, I think the message is clear, rectangular grids. But I don't think it, it's obviously it's not correct, but this is all about rectangular grids, not,
It's a visualization, but yeah, I get what Randy's saying too.
I agree with Randy.
because here the grid zones is actually that long.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
So I like the
Okay, I see
rectangular
that.
grids. That's really what it's all about. Conceptually, that's how it works. It's a rectangular grid across the entire country. We just break it up into different grid zones.
That's true.
I got slayed by the shared geo people.
Because they're all techies. you got
But I think it
geospatial
was-
geniuses.
I think it was my own fault though, because they'd seen the checkerboard one before and I got told, looks like you're participating in the Indianapolis 500. So yeah, we checkerboard. One of the original versions was checkerboarding, but okay. Anything else from the floor?
I will say that the red, white, and blue one makes me think that it's national, you know, yeah, like the US flag nationally accepted.
Okay. Good feedback. Thank you.
Is to my knowledge, the lack of a logo is holding up Georgiana's document, right? Because doesn't she want to put some logo on there? And I kind of want to get that document out, published. You know, I mean, granted, they're publishing it, but I just want to forward the link to folks. So until it gets out there, I can't do that.
Yeah, there's a lot of things logo is, but we'll put that at the top of the agenda for this private meeting. We'll try to run that within a week or so, Al. We'll get it resolved. We'll get it resolved.
Well, you're
Thanks,
asking,
Steve.
so I was just opining. That's all.
No, I no complaints.
Hey,
Okay,
Steve, this is Ron. I got something. I don't know if you saw my email I sent this morning, but
I did.
Since we don't have very many ELMs in our county right now implemented, we use Rapid SOS quite a bit to find lost persons. And currently, well, previously we only got lat long in degrees, and so we would take those coordinates from the actual caller and put them in GIS Surfer to locate them. And I reached out to Rapid SOS before about adding USNG to their coordinates, and they said they would get back with me. And then a few weeks ago, I noticed that they added what 3 words as one of their locations.
Oh, no.
And so I reached out to them again about adding USNG to their location information. And of course, they said they'd get back to me again. So, you know, and I explained in the email that what 3 words is totally useless to us in the field. So hopefully they will look into it and maybe add that to their location information.
I really appreciate you taking the initiative to do that, Ron. And I think it drives that story to me is very similar to what we saw with Jules and Doug Tager talking about trying to do a better job of engaging with the auto industry on implementing US national. They're doing the same thing. What 3 words into GPS units on board cars, and to the degree that Tom Terry, again, 10 years ago, was showing how US National Grid implemented into onboard systems would go a long ways to solving, you know, where accident locations were and the rest of it. A letter from
Well, it just made me think that, you know, what 3 words must have some really great salespersons out there pushing that product. You know,
it's got Esri behind it. That's what's driving it. And so
The Borg.
to me,
Yeah.
the way to fight back on that is you got to have an operating entity to start throwing punches, so that it's not individuals that are putting themselves at risk, but it's the entity. So anyway,
Could I
Well,
interrupt? and ask Ron a
short
question?
of that, go ahead.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to ask Ron a question. So you say you take that Rapid SOS and then you put it into Joseph's GIS Surfer and then you turn it into a USNG. Can you do a couple of those and do a screenshots and do a little article on that, and then, or turn it into a PowerPoint and send that to them? But then also, it would be great for us to publish that. You know, I got Facebook and Twitter, and send that out there that your entity. This is how you do searches. This is how you find people. And then, we could semi or quasi or try to embarrass Rapid SOS from the standpoint that, it takes an extra step. It'd be nice if they could just tell us direct, but we have to do this extra step in order to find the folk. And
I kind of explained that to them. And what we do is our PSAP has Rapid SOS, but they don't always utilize the location information. So our managers, battalion chiefs and captains, we have access to Rapid SOS in our vehicles. So we will see the call on our vehicles and we'll get the coordinates from the caller, the actual coordinates. And so what we'll do is we'll put those in a lat long into GIS Surfer and get the location of the lost person or the emergency incident. But we also, if it's an actual search that's going to be ongoing for a while, we'll take those coordinates and make a SAR topo map. And I attached the SAR topo map in my email to Rapid SOS as an example of that.
That's awesome. That's exactly what I teach. I mean, that's it. There, it's all right there. You know, you got GIS Surfer for the quick, you got SAR topo, and you're making maps, and you can print them out and hand them out to teams. I mean, I've taught that up in, where was it, Michigan? That was it. So
Yeah.
that's good stuff. But
SAR topo is really good because SAR topo has the QR code, and you can quickly share that map around an incident with cell phones very quickly.
And I'm sure you put that SAR topo map on Advenza PDF maps too. You know, you can send a text to somebody, and if you've seen, I know we're compatriots here. Once you know that the link never changes. It's only the last 4 digits. So you could send somebody or say over the radio, Papa Sierra 5 Queen, and they just put those last 4 digits or last 4 characters in the SAR topo link, and it'll open right up. And there you go.
Yeah, and I actually one time had a crew come in that wasn't really familiar with USNG and maps. So I gave them the iPad off of our unit and put the SAR topo map in Avenza and handed it to them. And I said, here you are. And as you start walking, and I put a marker of where the person was. And I said, you're here and that's where they are. And so they just started going toward the victim, and eventually they could see where they were and where they were moving to and where the person was, and found them within just a few minutes. And it worked out really good.
Yeah, that's awesome stuff. That's awesome. And that's all the poor man's free stuff. That's what I teach. None of that boring stuff. So,
okie
good
doke.
stuff. Well, please try to publish that. I'd love to see a little article, or we could publish articles, or I got the Medium page. I mean, if you could send me a write up on it, I'll post it. I mean, I've been kind of dormant lately, so looking for product. It'd be nice to see something where we could flag some of those, take some old ones and remove the names and say this actually occurred. That that people want to read that stuff.
Okay, I'll see what I can put together.
Cool. Anything else from the floor? Okay, we're up. We've come up on our time here. Next meeting, the date there is.
That's a Thursday.
Did I grab the wrong month again?
July 28th is a Wednesday.
Sorry, folks. I can't read a calendar, so that's grounds for being fired. So there you have it. You'll have to have somebody else doing this next time. Okay, July 28th is a suggested day. Going around who's left here, availability. I guess Al is possessed by wanting to draw on the screen.
Oh, I'm doing that. You guys actually see that?
Oh, heck yeah.
Oh, well, that's just fat finger errors on my part. Sorry. I was trying to figure out how to get rid of it. So I didn't know I was drawing on your stuff. I'm sorry. I thought I was drawing on my page. I didn't know I was drawing on yours.
Well, at least I can see it. I don't know what everybody else can see, but there you go.
Hey, I just wanted to give high regards to the Grand Poobah out there, Mr. Talbot Brooks. Hello there, Talbot.
Hey, Al, good to hear from you.
Yeah, man. We're still plugging away here, so well, thanks for joining in.
Okay, July 28th. Al, can you make it?
At this point, yeah, fine. I have no idea. So yes, I'm good.
Randy, you good?
I've got vacation planned, but we just got fiber active at the cabin, so I might be able to attend.
Nice. Yeah, July's always a rough month to get people together. How about any of the other?
I'm gonna put it on my calendar. I want to do a test with you on the meeting. I don't know why I didn't get that notice, Steve.
Yeah,
I can't find it.
we can check it out.
All right.
The
Across
time says 2 o'clock Central. Did you mean 2 o'clock Eastern?
Yeah, obviously I put this together late. Yes, it'd be 1 o'clock Central, 2 o'clock Eastern.
Got it.
Okay. So any complaints? Does that work? Reasonably so. It isn't like we're in the middle of like Oktoberfest or anything. Okay. All right. I'll correct the next meeting indication. Here's an interesting spin of where we are. I kept the invite for this meeting limited. And I've actually now built out the contact database for people that have stuck up their hand and said they're interested in what we're doing, or they're interested in US National Grid or whatever. It's now sits at 224, which is a considerable uptick from where we were at 45 before. Do we invite all of these people?
Thank you.
I think it depends on the content.
Okay. Tell you what, we can table that for the small group meeting. We'll go forward from there. Okay. All right, everybody. Thank you so much. And I need a motion to adjourn this thing, and then we're on our way.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Thank you all. To the degree that anyone objects, do I have any nays out there? Going once, going twice, gone. We're adjourned. Thank you, everybody, for your time. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks all.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.